This Day in Sports History. This episode is brought to you by the Sterling Soap Company. I'm a big fan of shave soap. I've been using different brands for years, and I recently gave Sterling's shave soaps a try, and I've been very happy with the results. Sterling's shave soaps give you a great lather and a frictionless feel that allows the razor to glide right over the skin for a super close shave. No skin irritation and a clean, refreshing feel with no soapy residue after. I can tell you without a doubt, it's simply the best shave I've ever had. And my wife has noticed too. And here's the thing. With the ability to purchase 1-ounce sample pucks, you can try out different scents to find the right one for you. Give Sterling Soap a try today. Visit sterlingsoap.com. That's STIRLING soap.com. And welcome back to This Day in Sports History, a member of the Sports History Network. More info, more podcasts, and giveaways, which I'll talk about in just a second, available at sportshistorynetwork.com. It's February 9th, and on this day in 1992, Magic Johnson played in the NBA All-Star Game 3 months after he'd announced he had HIV and was retiring from basketball. Magic's shocking announcement on November 7, 1991, that he had HIV, the virus that causes AIDS, and was retiring from basketball left the league with a gaping void. He was the engine that powered the Showtime Lakers, and he had a personality to carry the league on his shoulders. Sure, there was Bird and Jordan and Barkley, and Kareem was still around with the Lakers, but the 32-year-old Johnson was a one-of-a-kind player whose departure from the game felt more like death than retirement. And it was a scary time. We were all still learning about this horrible disease, and there was fear and misunderstanding because we just didn't have enough info yet. Magic was the first real face of the disease. NBA fans never lost their love for Magic, though, and despite not playing a single minute during the 91-92 season, those fans voted him to play in the All-Star Game. Magic also thought it was important for him to play, not for himself really, but for others.
I have to be out there for myself, and I have to be out there for a lot of people who are, whether they have a disease, whether they have a handicap, whatever they have, and let them see that they can carry on and still live and don't have to feel like they're different.
But while a lot of fans embraced Magic's return, not everybody participating against him were all that excited. Now, an All-Star Game is obviously not a typical NBA game. It's not anywhere close to as physical, and not much of what can be called defense is actually played. Even though doctors assured players that the risks were tiny, there was still doubt about what might happen if Magic's sweat trickled into a cut on a player's arm. There wasn't anything publicly said in deference to Magic, but there were a lot of whispers and private conversations. His good friend Isaiah Thomas supported Magic's return.
I don't think anybody should be insulted by people asking those questions or having those questions. The worst thing that can happen is people go around whispering it. But when you ask those questions and the medical people come out and they answer those questions, then hey, let the guy play, let's get out here and have some fun and let the fans see what they want to see.
So on this day, Magic was in the starting lineup as voted on by the fans. And even though he had not played a competitive game in about 8 months, he gave the fans what they wanted to see and came out firing, scoring 8 in the first 5 minutes of the game. And with the thought that this might be his last game, he went out in a blaze of glory.
Magic got his 3. Waiting for that moment to shoot the 3. 19 for Johnson, his first points of the second half. 3-point marks, most attempts, most made. Johnson, 2 in a row for Magic. He's going for the MVP. 6-5, 3-pointer. Yes! Oh, my!
He finished with 25 points and 9 assists and was named MVP. He would go on to play with the Dream Team in Barcelona that summer and win gold, and then announced his intention to come back to play again in the NBA full-time at the start of the 92-93 season. But he faced a lot of backlash around the league from players who were worried about contracting the virus from Magic in the more physical, day-to-day grind of the NBA. He acquiesced and sat out another 3 seasons before his short comeback in 96 that we talked about a few weeks back. On this day in 1991, Sugar Ray Leonard took a brutal beating from Terry Norris. This was a super welterweight title fight, and it was the first fight for Leonard in 14 months. Leonard had dealt with a detached retina that forced his first retirement from boxing in November of 1982. But the lure of the ring brought him back in 84. He retired again after just one fight, only to come back to fight Marvin Hagler in 87, which he won, and then retired again. Leonard's scratched record continued to skip and repeat as he came back to fight several more times. He definitely should have retired again before this one. The fight was at Madison Square Garden, and this was pretty much a beatdown from the first bell. Norris put him on the mat in the second round and then continued to batter him in the following rounds.
Oh, what an uppercut by Norris. Leonard in trouble against the ropes. Norris landing the right hand. There's some blood streaming from the mouth of Sugar Ray Leonard inside a minute in the 5th. There's a crunching left. Uppercut. Leonard again playing games with Terry Norris.
Norris continued his barrage and put Sugar Ray down again in the 7th.
There's a solid jab. And a right hand, Leonard goes down.
The fight went the full 12 rounds, with Norris winning a unanimous decision. Norris looked like he'd hardly been touched, while Leonard's left eye was swollen shut and his lips were cut. And once again, Sugar Ray announced his retirement, only to come back and fight one more time 6 years later. Hey, I needed to call a quick timeout to let you know that we're giving away a $50 gift card to Homefield Apparel. Have a favorite college sports team? Of course you do. You're listening to a sports podcast. Well, Homefield Apparel has all the great gear so you can support your team in style. Jerseys, hoodies, hats, and a whole lot more are available in your team's colors and insignias. So go to sportshistorynetwork.com/giveaways for your chance at a $50 gift card to Homefield Apparel. I've also put a link in the show notes. Now, let's get back out there. We've got more of this episode to do. On this day in 2006, a network broadcaster was traded for a cartoon rabbit. The network broadcaster in question was veteran Al Michaels, a familiar face and voice who called some of the most memorable games in sports, such as the Miracle on Ice, World Series games, Monday Night Football, and studio work. Well, back in 2005, ESPN, which is under the umbrella of ABC, won the rights to Monday Night Football, which is a one-game-a-week production. They lost the rights to Sunday Night Football, which had been 2 games a week. ESPN had 2 broadcast teams that covered the Sunday Night Football games, and they needed to make a decision on who would be the broadcast team for their Monday night telecasts. Actually, John Madden may have made the decision a little easier. Madden worked with Michaels as the analyst, and his contract was up. NBC recruited him, and he signed with the Peacock, which now had the rights to Sunday Night Football. The producer and director from that team soon followed Madden, leaving Michaels tethered to his ABC contract. Michaels had been with ABC for the past 30 years, and ESPN wanted to keep him, but a couple of things here. One, ESPN's president at the time was John Skipper, and he was looking at the potential broadcast booth of Michaels and color analyst Joe Theismann. Those two would have been like oil and vinegar. Maybe you could get a good product out of it, but they were never going to mix very well. Also, Michaels wanted to follow his friend and broadcast partner John Madden to NBC, and he let ESPN know that in late January of '06. Now, enter Disney's Bob Iger. When Iger heard that Michaels wanted to leave for NBC, he told Skipper that he was willing to let him out of his contract if NBC would relinquish the rights to Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. While Walt Disney liked to say that it all started with a mouse, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit was one of Walt's earliest creations, appearing first in the cartoon Trolley Troubles in 1927. And by the way, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit looks a lot like the early Steamboat Willie Mickey Mouse, just with longer ears. Anyway, Walt produced several Oswald the Lucky Rabbit shorts for Universal to get his animation studio up and running, and Universal was owned by NBC, and it still had the rights to Oswald. Iger knew that Oswald was important not only to the history of Walt Disney, but to Disney's family as well. It took about a week to get it done, but on this day in 2006, the deal was struck, and Al Michaels was, in essence, traded to NBC for the rights to Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. On this day in 1986, Charlie Owens won the Treasure Coast Classic Senior PGA Tour event in Fort Pierce, Florida. Owens was one of golf's pioneers, like Charlie Sifford and Lee Elder. Owens was a black man trying to play golf on the PGA Tour in the late 60s and early 70s. It was not the most welcoming environment, and he certainly faced his share of racism. He played in 46 tour events, made the cut in 23 of them, but he never cashed a winner's check there. By '86, he'd joined Arnold Palmer, Chichi Rodriguez, and others on the Senior PGA Tour, and on this day, Owens won his first Senior PGA Tour event, and he did it using an anchored putter, the first time it had been used to win an event. Owens had designed the 52-inch putter and had a machinist build it for him. On the green, he anchored the butt end to his sternum, and he rolled in putt after putt with it. He beat Elder and Don January by 3 shots, and people started to take notice. More and more players started giving these funky-looking putters a try, and Owens actually won a second time a month later. Also on this day, in 1920, Major League Baseball set rules in place to banish the spitball and other methods used by pitchers to doctor baseballs. What happened on this day was a compromise between owners who did not think that their pitchers could win games without putting a little something extra on the ball, and others who wanted to sanitize the game and produce more excitement. The league allowed 17 veteran pitchers to be grandfathered in as spitballers, and they could throw the pitch legally. No new players would be added to that list, and then once the 17 players grandfathered in left baseball, the spitball, shine ball, Vaseline ball, snot ball, or any other substance on the ball would be illegal. It would be another 14 years until the spitball would become completely illegal, with the last legal spitball pitcher, Burley Grimes, retiring at the age of 41 in 1934. And time now for today's That's Got Nothing to Do with Sports fun fact. Do you remember the 2004 movie Sideways about 2 dudes played by Paul Giamatti and Thomas Hayden Church who travel through California wine country? Well, a line in that movie changed the wine industry. Giamatti's character goes on a rant prior to a double date about his distaste for Merlot and his love for Pinot Noir. Well, after the movie came out, sales of Merlot dropped. A study conducted in 2009 showed a 2% drop in Merlot sales between 2005 and 2008, while Pinot Noir sales increased 16%. And that effect still continues to this day. Since the movie was released, Pinot Noir production has increased 170%, while overall wine production has only increased about 8%. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.